Today is a crossover episode with Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates as we preview the four-game NL Central Division matchup between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the St. Louis Cardinals, which begins tonight at Busch Stadium.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals and Pirates fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter at JD Sports Radio. You can follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. We want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Pirates your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, also on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment so you can interact with us. Hit the notification button so you know when the new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. So the Cardinals and the Pirates are set to face each other for the next 4 days. And to give us a little insight into what's going on with the Pittsburgh Pirates so far this season, we want to welcome in Ethan Smith from Locked On Pirates. Ethan, how are things, my friend?
Well, they were great until Oneil Cruz's ankle and fibula decided they wanted to just snap in half. But Seby Zavala is now a public enemy number one in Pittsburgh for quite some time after he said they'll forget about it in a few days. Well, Seby Zavala, I haven't forgotten about it, even though we're heading to St. Louis for 4 games. And what feels really weird, by the way, JD, with this new schedule is it's like usually you start the season, it's division series, and then you move on. Now it's like, oh, wait, this is only the second division series of the year for Pittsburgh. This is real. It feels weird. It really does.
Yeah, same for the Cardinals. They got to play Milwaukee in Milwaukee last week, and this will only be the second division series for us as well, facing the Pirates, who the Cardinals have won 2 straight. Let's set this up real quick. Cardinals have won 2 in a row, so they're starting to feel a little bit better about themselves because just a couple of days ago, they had the worst record in the National League. They're now 5-7, while the Pirates have surprised a lot of people with their solid start to the year. Pirates currently at 7-5. So far, what is the biggest reason for the Pirates' early success here in 2023?
They've found different ways to win different games. Now, I know that's like kind of like probably like, oh, that's anybody could say that, but there's been games where, like with Johan Oviedo, who you guys will see in this series, we all remember that trade last year for Jose Quintana. He pitched 7 scoreless innings a few days ago on Sunday. I know I say a few days ago, it's Thursday, but he pitched 7 scoreless against a very good Chicago White Sox team. They win that game 1-0. You scroll back a little bit farther than that, maybe 2 days before that, they win 13-9 against the Chicago White Sox because the offense all of a sudden just came out of nowhere. So they've proven early in the year that this is a team that can win in different ways. They have a good mix of veterans. They have a good mix of young guys. They have a good mixture of that going right now. The bullpen has not been terrible, but you are starting to see some of the cracks the last couple of days, albeit against Houston, who just won the World Series last year, so I didn't put a lot of stock into that. But at the end of the day, this team has a resiliency about it. They have kind of a grit about themselves. And with Oneil Cruz going down, I think that they're kind of stepping up in a certain way to where they're saying, hey, one of our best guys is out. Other guys need to step up. It's just a matter of time before we see who those guys are that are going to step up. And I imagine it's the same way for St. Louis because I'm going to just say the elephant in the room because I already know it's going to happen. You guys seem to always break records against us. You always do. And there's a certain somebody that goes by the name of Jordan Walker who, if he gets a base hit tonight at Busch Stadium or Busch Field, I forget which one it's called sometimes.
Stadium, you got it right.
Busch Stadium, Busch Field. Hey, it's a beer company. If Jordan Walker gets a hit tonight, he breaks the record for the most consecutive hits in a major league debut. I would bet that it happens. I, as a Pirates fan, I've seen everything that this Cardinals team can do to this franchise, and I would bet that it happens. So, again, I'll ask you the same question, too. What has been the recipe for the success, albeit that You said you had the worst record in the National League not too many days ago, but there has to be some success going on. What have the Cardinals been doing? I mean, I haven't really paid attention too much outside of the fact that I know the pitching has kind of been a mess, but
Yeah.
that lineup 1 through 9 is scary, dude.
Well, as you mentioned, the starting pitching has been a problem. They haven't been able to go very far in games. They've only got one quality start so far, and that was by the guy that you guys will face tonight in Jordan Montgomery, who just dazzled against the Brewers last weekend. So he looked really, really good. That's been an issue. They've been falling behind early and having to play catch up. And this team is built to win games 6-5, 7-6 type of that. But when the offense does get shut down, they're going to lose because that's the strongest part of this team. They've had a very good bullpen outside of guys like Jordan Hicks, Andre Palante have had some ugly numbers so far this year, some very crooked numbers. Outside of that, their ERA is at like 1.41 so far out of everybody else in the bullpen. They've been fantastic. So the idea and the blueprint, which I call it for Cardinals victories this year, has been starting pitchers have to give up 3 or 4 runs a game. Expect that to happen. Your offense has to be better than that with the bullpen coming in to limit the damage, and that's how you're going to win ball games. And when the starting pitching gives up 6, 7, 8 runs, it's a problem. And most offenses in baseball aren't going to be able to overcome that. And the offense kind of it struggled a little bit. Maybe it woke up a bit in Coors Field, which is always nice. You know, when you can play there, that seems to be a nice place to make offenses feel better. But we'll see what happens when they get back to Busch in the next 4 days, because that's a pitcher's ballpark. That's not a hitter's ballpark. So we'll see if they can continue the momentum that they gained in Colorado over the last 2 wins and bring it up against the Pirates for the next 4 days. You mentioned some of the guys that are doing really well for you that have had to step up in the absence of Oneil Cruz. One of those guys who's been there the whole time. How long he's going to be there, we're not entirely sure. They're still trying to figure that out. But outfielder Bryan Reynolds has been red hot out of the gate. How are you guys feeling about Bryan? Do you think he stays a Pirate? Are you confident in that? Because it seems like they've gotten closer rather than farther apart since, you know, the stories we heard in the offseason.
Yeah, so right before opening day against Cincinnati, it felt like they were on the 1 yard line, and it was quoted as "Don't pull a Russell Wilson here." If we, for all my football fans who remember that Super Bowl against the Patriots with the Seattle Seahawks when he threw an interception on the 1 yard line.
Run the ball.
Yeah, and there have been reports even today that have said, yeah, this has gotten very quiet, but I've said this a lot of times. If it's quiet, that's a good thing. Cardinals fans who may not know, this is the best thing that I could say here about Bryan Reynolds. If you want to know the kind of guy that Bryan Reynolds is, search up Bryan Reynolds interview. Just, it could be any interview, any post game that he has ever done. He is the most down to earth guy. He does not care. He has the most boring, monotone voice you will ever hear in your life. That's what he is. He prefers contract negotiations like this to be quiet. Also, to speak on the agency that he is under, they have used the idea of a trade request, and I put quotations on that if you're watching on YouTube, because they want the emphasis to be on, we want to get this done now. And with the Oneil Cruz injury, it makes it a little interesting because now it's like, okay, the way they started the year, let's say 2 months from now, they're in the same position, 2 games over 500 with a weaker NL Central where there's the idea of making a run. Things get a little interesting if you have Oneil Cruz there. But now that they don't, they're probably not expecting to win much now, and I don't think they really expected to win much anyway. So it's one of those things, too, that the Pirates historically don't do contract negotiations in season. Is it something that I think is going to get done and he stays in Pittsburgh? Yes, he has expressed that he wants to be here. I mean, on opening day at PNC last Friday, he said these are the best fans in the world and I don't want to play for anybody else. So he wants to play here. It's just a matter of the logistics that are going to get done, to which I'll say, and this is going to be contract talk, so if it bores you, I apologize. The contract that came out from the Bryan Reynolds camp that said he wanted an opt-out after a certain time would make absolutely no sense for the Pirates to sign, considering they extended him to 2025 last year. So why would you extend him again to where he has an opt-out after 2026? So you're basically extending him for another year while also paying him $100 and something million over the course of the contract if he does stay. So that's kind of been the lock that they've been on, is where the opt-out would come in, or if there would be an opt-out at all. But as for right now, he's one of the best players in the National League and in baseball right now in terms of how he's playing, JD. So I'm not really worried about contracts, but on the other side of it, I wish I could just enjoy it and know that he's going to be here for the next 6 years.
Yeah, and the Cardinals went through something kind of similar as far as the opt-outs went with Nolan Arenado, who decided this past offseason, he's like, I'm not opting out. We're cool. Even though we all thought he was not doing it, but there was still that chance because you saw the crazy contracts that were going out, and you're like, oh gosh, is he? Maybe he does. And he decided to stick around. And just as a baseball fan, I want to see guys like Bryan Reynolds stay on teams and in cities like Pittsburgh. Like, I don't want to see them get pilfered and taken and end up on one of the big market teams. Like, I enjoy the balance when a lot of teams are good. I don't need to see him go to a major market and just become a guy on one of their teams. Like, I like him in Pittsburgh, and personally, I hope it gets done, and I hope he sticks around there for a long time because we enjoy watching him play, and I like that he's in the NL Central just so I can see him play more. I think it's I think it's good for the game, and I think it's good for baseball altogether. We're going to talk more about Oneil Cruz. I want to get into the injury there for people who may not be familiar with what happened to Oneil, and we're also going to get into some pitching matchups for this series between the Pirates and the Cardinals. We'll do that next on Locked On Cardinals. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around, not later on down the road. Just add your ride to My Garage, and then you look for that green check to know that the part will fit or you get your money back. So that's an awesome guarantee. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Once again, we're doing a crossover episode with Ethan Smith from Locked On Pirates as the Pirates and the Cardinals set to begin a 4-game set or series. I had this talk with the wife yesterday. Do you like calling, when it's 4 games, do you like calling them a series or a set?
It just really depends. I just consider them all a series, but a 4-game set, I hear people say it, and I think it makes a little more sense because, like, when you think of a baseball series, you're thinking more of 3 games. Like, there's a defined winner there.
Yeah, an odd number of games.
Yeah, in these 4-gamers, it's a little different because you're not always getting a winner. It's like, oh, they split the series. Okay, where's game 5? It's like, exactly. Especially with the shirt you see I have on, about to enter the NBA playoff scenario, obviously with 7 games. It's like, if you're 2-2 at the end of that, you got a 3-game series after that. Like, it's the 3-game series after that. So either or is fine, but I also consider every single series in a season a series, but I'm not against calling it a set, if that makes sense.
Well, I feel better because that's exactly how I explained it to her. So I was like, I'm sure there's a real answer to this, but here's how I personally feel on it. So I'm glad we got that out of the way. All right. So, Ethan, let's talk injuries, man. Teams deal with different injuries throughout the year. The hope is that you don't lose one of your best players. And if you do lose him, you hope that it's not a significant injury that will put them on the shelf for a long time. And unfortunately for the Pirates and for baseball fans, Oneil Cruz had a devastating injury and will be gone for quite some time. For fans who aren't familiar with this on the Cardinals side of things, what happened to Oneil Cruz in this play at the plate?
So, runners on first and third, nobody out against the White Sox. He runs on contact. I don't think he expected the play to come home, even though it was an infield hit. He just ran immediately on contact. And for those that do not know, Oneil Cruz is a very fast guy for 6'7".
Yes.
And his foot just got caught in the dirt. This is what I said about it immediately. It was not Sebi Zavala's fault. It was not Oneil Cruz's fault. It was nobody's fault. It was a tragic baseball play that could happen at any given point. Now, when Sebi Zavala decided that he wanted to look down on Oneil Cruz and call him explicitives after you could kind of noticeably tell that he was hurt, that's where that public enemy number one thing came in. And the fact that he also said that, yeah, as you see here on YouTube, and after he said that people would forget about this after a couple days, well, Oneil Cruz had surgery that night and is out for the next 4 months. So I don't think he's forgetting about it for a couple days, and I don't think the Pittsburgh Pirates are forgetting about it either. Now, when you look at the farm system that the Pirates have, Tucapita Marcano, Nick Gonzalez, Leo Piguero are all guys that could come up here. But right now, G1 Bay just hit a walk-off home run against the Houston Astros 2 days ago, and Rodolfo Castro are manning that for now. Mark Mathias, who was from the Texas Rangers, they picked him up off of waivers. He's the backup infielder right now. They're not going to make up for Oneil Cruz's production, but so far they've done mostly okay. The only thing that you're really worried about is defense at that shortstop position. It's the most important defensive position on the diamond. And Oneil Cruz, albeit is not the greatest defender in the world, but he has a rocket arm that can get the ball to first. That'll figure it out eventually. It's an unfortunate situation, but at the end of the day, these kind of things happen, and good baseball teams figure out a way to circumvent them until he comes back. So we'll see if the Pirates can figure that out. That's really all it is at this point. You have a guy like Bryan Reynolds in the lineup too, and another guy like Andrew McCutchen that is going to travel to Busch Stadium for the first time as a Pittsburgh Pirate in almost 5 years, who's gotten off to a hot start this year as well. So you just hope that the offense could survive for 4 months. I know 4 months is a long time to think about for an offense surviving without the production of Oneil Cruz, but the Pirates have viable major league options that they can bring up at any given time if they really need to, rather than the last couple years where they were playing Josh Van Meter and Will Craig. So
if you had to put it in Cardinals terms, this is for the Cardinal fans, losing Oneil Cruz on a Pirates team is like losing who on the Cardinals team?
I know it's kind of early, but Jordan Walker. I mean, the
Okay.
kid is like, that's kind of your Oneil Cruz comparison right now. I know Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt are great players, but losing them, I think, would matter more than losing Oneil Cruz, because I still would think Bryan Reynolds is the best player on this team. But with a guy like Jordan Walker, who I mentioned earlier is on a 12-game hit streak to start his career, if he was to go down with an injury, I mean, that just kills all of his momentum. And that was where Oneil Cruz was. He hits the home run off Hunter Green on opening day. He does good things in the field. He's doing good things on the base pass, all that good stuff. And it just kind of just stalled immediately as soon as that happened. And now when he comes back in 4 months, it's almost going to be like a reopening day for him when he comes back. And I do want to reiterate, by the way, that his expected return is in 4 months, not when he's going to start rehabbing. So I know that's kind of been like one of those things that's kind of gotten lost in translation. He'll probably be rehabbing as in like rehab starts 3 months from now. They'll give him probably a good month or so at that like AAA or AA level or whatever, however they want to do it. But he's expected to be back in 4 months, not starting rehab in 4 months. But if I had to make a comparison for Cardinals fans, yeah, I'd say it'd be Jordan Walker, just because one, he's kicking off his career. This was supposed to be Oneil Cruz's first full season as a Pittsburgh Pirate, expecting the same thing for Jordan Walker. And you want that kid to keep the momentum going for himself that he has right now. And realistically, I could see those two kind of being the clashing of the NL Central for quite some time, alongside Ellie De La Cruz in Cincinnati, and then some other guys amongst the division as well in Chicago and Milwaukee that'll eventually make strides as well.
Let's roll into some of the pitching matchups that are going to happen over the next 4 days. Tonight, Vince Velasquez will be going up against Jordan Montgomery. What can the Cardinals expect from Velasquez? I mean, they've seen him. He's a veteran. He's been around the league for a little while now. How's he been looking wearing the Pittsburgh uniform this year?
In his first couple starts, I mean, you look at the you can look at the ERAs all you want this early in the year. They're inflated ERAs. We all know that. It's been a couple starts. Of course, he started the last game. He started 2 2/3, 5 earned runs, only 1 strikeout and 4 walks. Other than that, I mean, he's given up 8 earned runs across 2 of his starts. Has more walks than strikeouts. If you attack him early, you're going to get to him. But Vince Velasquez, he has to bring things down in the zone. You're going to see a lot of stuff on the top of the zone that you don't want to see. And that's all I really have to say about it. I mean, he's a veteran arm that the Pirates went out and bought in free agency. They wanted to bring him in. I labeled him more as a bullpen guy eventually, but with JT Brubaker just having Tommy John surgery yesterday, that whole idea has been all over the place now. So we'll have to wait until some of these minor league guys are ready for that to become a thing. But if he can bring things down in the zone, in the lower part of the zone, different story on Vince Velasquez. But so far through his first couple starts, he's been elevating things, and opposing hitters have been elevating his pitches alongside that.
Jordan Montgomery, as I mentioned earlier, just came off a fantastic game against the Brewers where he threw 7 shutout innings, gave up 3 earned runs against the Blue Jays, which is a very good offense as well. So he's been the one starting pitcher in the Cardinals rotation that has looked good like the whole time, like in his first 2 starts. Everybody else has struggled in some way, shape, or form. How do the Pirates match up against left-handed pitchers?
Well, you're not going to probably see G-Man Choi, even though we did on Tuesday against Framber Valdez. But you're probably not going to get G1 Bay in there because he struggled against Nick Lodolo in the second game of the year. Yeah, that was the second game of the year where he struggled mightily against left-handed pitching. And you have guys like Jack Sawinski, Caden Smith, and Jigba that are also left-handed hitters. You're probably just not going to really see those guys much tonight. I would expect a heavy righty lineup. I would expect Carlos Santana to probably play first base with his switch hitting so that he'll bat from the right side rather than the left side. Obviously, Bryan Reynolds is a switch hitter. You'll see him. Matching up against left-handed pitching is a little weird just because it's been a issue within the system for a while that all of the guys that are ready to come up are left-handed hitters. Mm-hmm. So Connor Joe is a guy that I think could have a decent night tonight against the St. Louis Cardinals if he starts. Now, this is going to look real dumb if he's not in the starting lineup, but I would expect him to be since he's a right-handed hitter. But then you have guys like Andrew McCutchen, who notoriously have been great against left-handed pitching. Who else do you have in there? Mark Mathias might actually get a start tonight because Rodolfo Castro doesn't do well against left-handed pitching. So it just really depends on what the Pirates want to do with their lineup construction. I mean, I already have my over-under on different lineups the Pirates are going to have this year, and my over-under was 101.5. So I think right now, especially with Cruz being hurt, that over will hit eventually. But it just really depends on what kind of lefty they're seeing. I mean, Montgomery, you know what you're getting from him so far. He's looked good so far. If the offense doesn't show up, it doesn't really matter what side he's pitching from.
On the Cardinal side of things, facing Velasquez, a couple of guys have had some decent numbers against him so far. Paul Goldschmidt, who usually hits everybody, so
yeah, he hits everybody. So yeah,
that he's hitting 357 off of him and 14 at bats. But the number that really popped out to me was what Tyler O'Neill has done against Velasquez. Only 4 at bats, but he's got 2 home runs and 4 RBIs against him. Is 3 for 4 in his career against Velasquez. So Tyler just hit another home run against Colorado, his first since opening day. So maybe somebody to watch tonight in that lineup that might be able to jump on, like you said, get on Velasquez early is kind of the game plan for teams when they're going up against him. All right, we'll come back to do some more of these pitching matchups here in just a moment because we've got 3 more games after tonight to talk about, and we'll give you guys our picks to click for this series. Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions. That's it. That's all they think they spend, but they actually spend closer to $200. And if you don't know exactly how much you're spending every month, you need RocketMoney. RocketMoney is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions that they completely forget about, that they're just wasting money on. RocketMoney will quickly and easily find your subscriptions for you, and for any that you don't want to pay anymore, you just hit the cancel button and RocketMoney will cancel it for you. It's that simple. RocketMoney also helps you manage all your finances in one place and automatically categorizes your expenses so that you can easily track your budget in real time and also get alerted if anything looks off. So stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/LockedOnMLB. That's rocketmoney.com/LockedOnMLB. rocketmoney.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you're feeling a little bit hungry today, looking for a delicious snack, but you don't want all the sugar and the calories, then you need to try the best tasting protein bar that I've ever had. You got to try this. They're Built Bars. If you're like me and you want the healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise with taste, then look no further than Built Bars, or you can go Built Puffs, or you can go both if you want to. It's up to you. They're healthy and they taste amazing because they're covered in 100% real dark chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, which is my favorite. They got cookies and cream, all sorts of different flavors. Go to Built.com, check them all out for yourself. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, but a whopping 17 grams of protein. So if you're trying to build muscle, protein, obviously the key to that, these are perfect for you. And now you don't need to wait to get a box. If you want to pick them up in person, you can do that by going to your local Walmart or Sam's Club, while you can still get your specialty flavors still at Built.com. But if you need them like today, you run out and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to order some, head to your nearest Walmart, walk to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can also pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate bar, or coconut puff. Go Sam's Club if you need to go bigger, 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter puff and churro puff. You can thank us later. But give a Built.com a whirl. Go check it out online. See all the flavors, see all the options, and grab your Built Bars today. Crossover episode once again. We've got my buddy Ethan Smith from Locked On Pirates. I'm JD from Locked On Cardinals. Let's talk more about these pitching matchups here today, because it looks like you guys are going to be throwing all right-handers according to the schedule, which isn't always the best news for the Cardinals, who hit lefties much better. Tomorrow, a familiar face. You talked about him earlier. Johan Oviedo will be taking on Jake Woodford on Saturday. How has Oviedo fit into the Pittsburgh plans? Because with the Cardinals, they weren't sure if they were going to make him a starter. He was going to be a reliever. How's he working out for you guys?
Well, and I think the Pirates had the same question until that JT Brubaker injury happened. Is we looked at him as a guy that we didn't know if he was going to be starting at the major league level or not, or if he was going to be a long reliever or a starter. But now with this JT Brubaker news, where he goes down with the Tommy John surgery for quite some time, they viewed him as a starter, and he's done quite well. I mean, he gave up 5 runs against the Boston Red Sox in the first inning of the first game of that series, but the Pirates honed down, get him back in the game, especially tying the game immediately. And if you take that out, I mean, his ERA is probably below a 1. I mean, he didn't do too bad there after that. I'll actually scroll real quick to find that for you real quick, because in his last start, he pitched 6 2/3 against the White Sox of scoreless baseball. And the Red Sox, after that first inning in that game, only had 1 run in the 6th inning, and I believe Oviedo was gone by then. So he actually did not allow a run outside of that first inning. So he is not allowed a run outside of 1 inning of work in the first inning at Fenway Park a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, he's done very good things for himself. He looks poised. He looks completely different with a hat on versus without a hat on. I didn't realize he had all that hair. But he looks really good. I mean, he just goes out, he attacks hitters immediately, and if he gets hit around, he doesn't let it phase him. And I think that trade has worked out well for the Pirates in terms of finding a starter. I mean, Quintana, of course, leaves St. Louis to go to the Mets, but I believe he's still on the injured list right now with some looming injuries. So it really just depends. And then, of course, Malcolm Nunez still at the lower levels of the system in Double-A right now, getting his feet under him as far as that trade is concerned.
How's Oviedo's control been? Because that was the real issue when he was with the Cardinals, because he's got great stuff. Like, it wasn't that he didn't have great stuff. It was the fact that he couldn't find the strike zone a lot of times, and it would get him into trouble.
Well, in that scoreless outing against the White Sox, 5 Ks, no walks. That was the big thing for me as well whenever they picked him up. And then, of course, in the Red Sox outing, which was his first outing, I believe he had 4 walks and 4 strikeouts. So 9 Ks, 4 walks right now through 2 starts. So kind of still there, kind of not. But eventually he's going to figure it out, I think. He's just too talented, I believe, to not figure it out. Now, does he profile as a starter long-term? I think that's a big question. We'll see how the Pirates eventually deal with that, with the likes of Mike Burrows, Quinn Priester, Osvaldo Bido, and other guys knocking on the door, and Luis Ortiz. So we'll see what they decide to do with him long-term. But short-term right now, he's profiled as a pretty good starter.
For Saturday and Sunday, Roansy Contreras against Steven Matz, and then Mitch Keller against Miles Michaelis. Contreras, we've seen him before with Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts on that matchup as he takes on, as you guys face another left-hander in Steven Matz?
He had a bad start his last time against the Astros. Obviously, he was a World Baseball Classic guy, so I think he's still getting kind of used to the pitch clock and some of the mannerisms that he's going to have to change. a little bit, but I would expect him to bounce back there. I'm not saying he's going to have like a crazy start, but I would expect him to not have a similar start to what he did in his last outing. Mitch Keller, of course, has taken an upward tick on his trajectory in his whole career. Former top 100 prospect in all of baseball, had those first few years where especially the Cardinals would beat him around a lot. He's looked a lot better. His fastball looks a lot better. His secondary pitches are just finally starting to get to that level that we've expected. And I would be talking extension with him pretty soon, because you do not want him to price himself out of Pittsburgh, because he would, if he goes on the trajectory he's on now throughout the rest of the season, you're talking about an $18 to $20 million guy as a starting pitcher.
All right. Picks to click this weekend. Who outside, you can't pick Bryan Reynolds, Ethan. It's not fair. We all know you got to watch him. Who else on the Pirates roster do you think is set up to have some good success against St. Louis over these next 4 games?
Well, facing 2 lefties in 4 games, I think, is going to benefit Andrew McCutchen a lot, and he's had a great start to the year. He's hitting over 300. He's getting on base like all the time. I think he actually is in the top 5 in Major League Baseball in walks right now. I would expect him to have a big series, especially considering all of the past that he's had with St. Louis. I think it'll be kind of a revenge series for him a little bit. So I would pick Andrew McCutchen. If I had to pick somebody else, it would be Connor Joe. I think he's had a good start to the year as well. Facing 2 lefties means he'll probably get a lot more looks this series also, rather than Ji-Hwan Bae, who would have been my original pick before I realized we were facing 2 lefties. So I would say Andrew McCutchen, but a honorable mention would be Connor Joe.
All right. Well, for the Pirates fans, a guy outside of, Goldie and Arenado, who clearly, again, just like Bryan Reynolds, you always have to keep your eyes on. Nolan Gorman has been a guy that is surprising so many people. Not me. I had his back all last year, even when he was striking out all the time, but he still offers that crazy power that he has from the left side of the plate. And I was hoping he would get better this year, and he absolutely has done that. Totally different hitter this year, totally different approach. He's willing to take the ball to the opposite field. He's laying off the high stuff. He's still going to have his strikeouts. That's just part of him. But at the same time, he's popping the ball over the wall, hit 2 home runs, 2 go-ahead home runs in the last 2 games against Colorado to kind of spark those victories. He's got 4 bombs on the year, 10 RBIs, and he's hitting .313. The .313 part is the area where nobody expected that. Most people thought he'd be one of those 220, 230 type of hitters. So far this year, he has not had that issue. He's not striking out nearly as much. He's actually being patient and walking. So give me some Nolan Gorman, considering it's going to be all 4 right-handers according to the schedule. And he's the left-handed power hitter that you're going to have to keep your eye on. Another guy that's also a left-handed swinger. And if they're not hitting, if the right-handed guys aren't hitting in the outfield, Alec Burleson is a guy that might be able to do some damage this weekend as well. Has had a pretty decent start to the season. He's hitting .300 with a home run and 3 RBIs. He's not getting as many starts. He's only been in 8 games so far, but he's a guy that they like his game. And when he has been making outs, he's hitting the ball hard still. They just happen to be going right at some people. So he's had a little bit of tough luck. But those are a couple of names that outside of the big guys that Pirates fans might want to keep an eye on. So looking forward to the weekend, and looking forward to these next 4 games. This is going to be – it's a big momentum thing for both franchises right now. If you come in and take 2 of 4 from St. Louis, I would say Cardinal fans are going to be upset about that.
Yeah, and I mean – Pirates are 7-5, and I think the goal going into this week, especially after the Cruz injury, was to leave this week above 500. So that would be the goal. They could still do that and leave the week at 500 with 1 win in St. Louis, but I do think this is a prove-it series for them. Hey, you've had a great start. Go into St. Louis and show that you're not just some like fluky hot start team. Like show that in the NL Central, they're a team to mess with this year. And I think that's what the Pirates are going to try to do this weekend.
All right. Well, once again, thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Pirates your first listen. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. You can win your league by listening to Matt and Dom. All sorts of insights every day. They bring you the best fantasy baseball knowledge possible. Ethan, do you do the fantasy baseball? I assume you do, because you don't?
Nope.
Oh, my gosh. I thought you were a straight-up nerd like me on that level, where you would do fantasy baseball as well.
I used to. I just can't keep up with it. It's like I can't keep up with trying to figure out. Oh, is this guy going to be the fourth starter in his rotation, and is this guy going to be the second starter in his rotation, so that I always get him in a pitching match? I just can't keep up with it.
Well, if you are a fantasy baseball guy, make sure you find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Pirates and Cardinals tonight at Busch Stadium. Jordan Montgomery looking to go 3-0 on the season against Vince Velasquez for Pittsburgh. First pitch will be at 6:45 St. Louis time. Ethan, tell everybody where they need to go to follow you on Twitter and wherever else you are on social media.
Twitter at MVP_Ethan and at Locked On Pirates. And as far as the show goes, you can find it wherever you find JD's show on YouTube, Spotify, Odyssey, Google Play, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your Cardinals and Pirates every day.
All right. Well, I appreciate you stopping in, Ethan, and good luck to your boys in the series, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you guys haven't already, please follow on Twitter at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube. You guys are the best fans of baseball for a reason. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.